Hello everyone and welcome to the SBK Betting Podcast, coming to you a day earlier than normal. Yes, it's Wednesday the 29th of May because we have got declarations in for the Oaks as customary. It's on Friday and of course the Derby on Saturday, waiting for the declarations, but we've got a pretty good handle of what we have in store, and what we have in store is a minefield, the most open Derby and the most open Oaks, but I think there's been more focus on the openness of the Derby that as we've seen in a long time, which means a lot of good prices for some of these horses, and imagine there could be a good few that are going to outrun their big odds. We're going to get tackling into the Derby after the Oaks, but before we do so, SBK are offering a 25% winning boost on both the Oaks and the Derby, up to a £10 stake. So make sure you get involved with SBK. There's plenty of other offers, same race ACCAs as well, because I'd imagine this is going to be one of those podcasts where we've got plenty of opinions, and the Oaks is where we're going to begin. As said, an open-looking field, but I don't feel like this is uncustomary to the Oaks. I feel like we have fillies, and maybe because a lot of them with the pedigrees that they have, it's normal for them to be taking a while to sort of relish and come into their own at sort of this stage. Is still quite early for them, and we still really don't know what we have in the shape of these 3-year-old fillies. But we know Ylang is a Group 1 winner, and she is at the top of the market 2-1 off the back of an eye-catching enough run in the Guineas. Rubies are Red also for the Ballydor team is 7-2. She's a maiden. We've got Azalea for Dermot Weld, she is 7-2. Forest Fairy, who is unbeaten, is 7-1. You got to me 14-1, 16-1 for Secret Satire and Treasure, and bigger prices for the rest of them. So maybe I'll start with Ross. We'll start with you, Ross, in the shape of the fact that this is a race where there is no standout, and pretty much similar to what we will come to see in the Derby. But as when it comes to classic form that's on offer, at least we know where we stand with Ylang. So with that in mind, and I'm going to come back to this when we come to the Derby, she probably deserves to be at the top of the betting.
Yeah, I think she does. I mean, as we'll get on to, Ballydor and Aiden have perhaps struggled with their first run this year, so you could probably upgrade her run, and she did finish off her run really well over the Guineas trip of a mile. Just looking at her pedigree, I'm not completely sold that she's got the stamina for this mile 4 trip. When you look through the pedigree, there's just enough reason to think that maybe 10 furlongs will be her trip. And I found her pretty underwhelming last year. I'm just not sold on the classiness of her, if you like. I thought she was pretty much disappointing throughout her 2-year-old campaign, when well fancied a lot of the time. Their other runner, Rubies, just for me, did not handle Lingfield at all. And so I'd question why she's going to come and handle Epsom. That would be enough reason to be against her. There's a few I like. Azalea was very weak in the market for the Salsaville Stakes on her return. Got a nice passage down the outside, but took an age to pick up, which was unusual because when she won her maiden over a mile, she did quicken up quite smartly. This was over 10 furlongs. Took a while to find her gear. Might have just been a bit of sort of lack of race fitness, race sharpness, but got there, and in the end I think was a little bit of a cosy winner. The runner-up Purple Lily was 5th then in the Irish Guineas. That gave the former a decent look. I liked what she did when she won her maiden. She did quicken up quite smartly on that occasion. She's definitely being trained by Dermot Weld to be a better 3-year-old than she was 2-year-old. You can absolutely guarantee that. She's out of a Group 3 winner over this trip, Group 2 winner over 10 furlongs, and was actually the Dam Zero was 3rd behind Enable in the Irish Derby. Quite a long way behind, but they all were on that occasion. Enable was exceptional. So I just like her, and I like her profile. I think she can build into this. And if I'm right, and that sort of lack of change of gear was down to a bit of lack of race sharpness, she could feasibly step forward a lot from that run. Got a lovely pedigree for this sort of trip. Forest Fairy, I know TC's going to give her a good plug, and I did like her. The one thing I say about Azalea, the only thing I'm not mad on is the price. 7-2 just seems short enough in what I think is an open Oaks. I much preferred Forest Fairy's price at 7-1. She tanked through the through the Chester Oaks, got caught on heels, had to switch, and probably did very well because it was only a second start to pick up and get to the front. She's definitely got loads of stamina, but this is going to be only her third start. And she just looked to me quite a heavy topped filly, and I just worry with those sometimes going around Epsom whether she's going to be balanced. And we can't see anything in her form to say whether she's balanced or not, other than the fact she handled a fairly sharp track like Chester. Rafe Beckett obviously is a master with these fillies, so I could give her a good chance. At a bigger price, Caught You Looking was up with the pace through the Southwell Stakes and weakened late on. I think you can put a line through that in terms of she's definitely got stamina for further. Probably a little bit of lack of race fitness on the first start. And for me, that's been a theme of this season. I think you want to be looking back at what they've done last year as opposed to what they've just done in their first run this year, because I think plenty of horses are taking a run to come right, more than I can ever remember. I think she could step forward for that. She's 40-1 with SBK. If you were looking for one at a big old price to run into a place, Caught You Looking might be the one. But for me, it's Azealia at 7-2, which hopefully might drift out on the day.
Yeah, Caught You Looking's form ties in with Azealia, and I think going back, I like her as well. She's the one that I was going to put up, and I actually think that run in the Court Maiden, that race has worked out really nicely. Wendler's gone on and improved this season. Was a little bit underwhelmed by the horses that ran in behind Azealia in the Irish Guineas. They didn't really show themselves to be sort of cutting it above or getting anywhere close to Fallen Angel. The closest one was Purple Lily, although Buttons, I think, was behind Azealia in that Court Maiden as well. So the form is okay without being anything special, but I do really like her running style. And I think it's important to remember, isn't it? And Ross, quickly on this, is that the balance a horse has to have and the ability to sort of travel. And I was hearing Shamie Heffernan saying how they need to have the speed to be up there out of the gates quite quickly, going uphill. Obviously, we know about the balance, and it's quite a lot to take for these fairly, not immature, but unpracticed in this kind of sense for these fillies. So there's a lot for them to have to get used to quite quickly. So you've had to have seen something quite specific in what they've done already to be keen that they'll be able to take on that challenge.
Yeah, I watched pretty much every single one of the runners, watched at least 2 of their runs. And for me, if I was showing someone how I thought a horse should gallop, she would definitely be it. She's a beautiful, fluid mover. That would suggest she's very well proportioned and balanced. And the thing to remember with Epsom, I don't think it always gets translated across, is we talk a lot about coming down Tattenham Corner and turning in, but also the home straight at Epsom is on a camber. So they're constantly getting, the gravity wants to pitch them in towards the rail. So they have to run against that camber as well. It's not simply just handle Tattenham Corner and you're home and dry. You've still got to maintain your balance all the way to the line. And I think that's perhaps often why suspect stayers at Epsom get found out, because the camber takes a little bit more to cope with as well.
Yeah, I think it's super important to sort of have all those blends of sort of necessities, so much that makes up the sort of fabric of the perfect sort of Derby Oaks horse. And going back over the last 10 years now, TC, you know, you're the top person I go to when it comes to trends, but it's quite frightening when you look at the horses and where they've come from. Aidan O'Brien, John Gosden, last year John and Thady Gosden are responsible for every winner since 2014. John and Thady Gosden without a runner in the race, surprisingly. Aidan O'Brien with just a couple. Do you think it's a new year to break those trends?
It could be. It's a wide open renewal. I very much agree with Ross on that count. You can make a solid case for all of the top 4 or 5 in the market. Aidan's obviously got the top 2 right now in Ylang Ylang, who definitely deserves to be favourite. I mean, if you look on figures alone, then Ylang Yang's almost got the race won. She should love the extra distance, in my opinion. I think she'll love the ground, providing it stays on the soft side as well. Her reappearance performance was absolutely fine. So with that step forward likely, she's definitely the one to beat. And I know that she's obviously highly regarded by connections. And everyone in Ireland seems to think she's the next big thing. By everyone, I mean punters and people that have connections to Aidan and Ballydoyle. So maybe she will win. I just don't really want too much for her at the price. And the same can be said for Rubies of Red, who really caught the eye at Lingfield last time. She was way off the speed. I don't know if it was an issue with her tactical speed, whether she wasn't able to get into a closer spot in the race, or whether Ryan just kept her too far back. But either way, she was just given too much to do in the straight. Aside from that, though, she looks a filly with lots of potential. But again, coming into this race as a maiden, I don't want anything to do with 7-2 or 4-1, whatever price she is. Azalea's interesting. You both obviously have already talked about her. Dermot Weld, obviously fantastic with this type of young horse. Well, with any horse, he's a brilliant trainer. His stable form right now is concerning for me. I mean, he's just won from 18 in the last 2 weeks. That's 6%. He's had a few places, so people are going to say the horses are running well anyway. But there have been a couple that have travelled really nicely into the race and then just bombed out in the latter stages, completely emptied. And that's a bit of a concern for me. So again, at a shortish price, I'm going to overlook her. She got a lot of talent, though, no doubt about that. That kind of leaves me with Forest Fairy for Rafe Beckett, who did win this race back in 2013. And the horse he won it with was Talent, who had a very similar kind of profile. I think she had 3 starts rather than Forest Fairy's 2, but they had similar RPRs coming into the race. And Forest Fairy could easily take a big step forward. The ground's going to suit her. She seems versatile, but any bit of dig is absolutely fine. The fact she ran around Chester, I know Ross said about the track at Epsom, they are different for sure, but it would give me extra hope that she could potentially handle Epsom. And she's got ability to at least hit the frame here. So 7-8-1, Forest Fairy's the way for me.
Yeah, I thought she did so well to get out of a lot of trouble, didn't she? And she just looks gutsy and tough. And she sort of reminds me of her Sarval Geist, who was very much like that. And it's and combined with Lope de Vega, I think it's a beautiful cross. So I'm going to nick both of your thoughts there, and to add to my own. But Azalea and Forest Fairy could be one for a same race hacker if you're interested in that. For that SBK using, they're also offering that 25% winning boost on this race. But I think there's a sense, myself and Ross both think that Azalea has got the potential to improve. Forest Fairy has already shown that, despite only a couple of runs and only running this year. But we've seen with the 2,000 guineas that you can miss your whole 2-year-old career and win a classic. So good luck to the team responsible for nurturing horses like this. So that's the Oaks, and onto the real talking race. It's the Derby. Talking race, not probably because we've got a vintage renewal by any means, but talking race because there's a lot of layers of stories and there's some lovely narratives coming out of this race with those that, you wouldn't normally associate with Derby contenders. And I think Roger Teal with Dancing Gemini is very much up there. And then you've got the likes of James Fanshawe, who hasn't had a trained a runner in the Derby for a long, long time. And seeing a horse of his in this lineup is extremely exciting. I think quite refreshing for the race as well. And I did an article for Racing TV on bloodstock and pedigrees, and there are plenty of horses that are bought for a small amount, not huge amounts of money at the yearling sales. So it kind of keeps the dream alive for all us wanting to win the Derby one day. But I suppose that means that everyone, all those that all the purists, thinks that it's probably not the best renewal. And then on top of that, we've got the story of, will he or won't he? Will City of Troy do what Auguste Rodin did, flop in the Guineas and come back and win the Derby? Aidan O'Brien has done it once before. There's no doubt that this genius of a trainer can do it again. Is he a similar type? Well, they're kind of waxing lyrical as if he is. I am struggling with it, and I was so much of a fan for so much of last year. I feel like I'll have egg on my face eventually, but I was not impressed by what he did. I wasn't impressed by him physically, and I can't see that horse dominating a Derby and pulling away from some potentially useful horses. Am I right or am I wrong, Tom Collins?
You may be right. You may be right, but this whole hysteria on social media about how City of Troy is a terrible racehorse, he's going to finish last, his recent work at Ballydoyle and that clip they put up was bad, his run in the Guineas means he hasn't trained on, a load of rubbish. It's absolute tosh. Now, he might not have trained on, but he didn't prove that in the Guineas. We don't know either way. He ran so badly, RPR of 84, that there must have been something else amiss with the horse, because if you haven't trained on, the literal definition of that is you haven't improved since your 2-year-old season, right? That usually means you run within 6 to 10 pounds worse or even closer to your actual RPR or your official rating that you did as a 2-year-old. He ran 41 pounds below. There is no way you can put that bad run at Newmarket down as not training on. He quite clearly didn't fire. Now, yeah, that brings huge concerns going into the Derby, but not from the not training on angle. Just whether this horse has an issue, whether, I don't know, something's wrong mentally with him or what happened. But the team at Ballydoyle know what they're doing with this type of horse. You've already mentioned Auguste Rodin. He came back from a terrible display to win and also has done it subsequently. He's flopped and won and flopped and won. So we know that horses can easily bounce back. And in this day and age, surely we all know that horses can have one bad run and still be top quality horses. They're not suddenly cart horses, are they? I mean, City of Troy, RPR 125 as a 2-year-old. The best 2-year-old I've ever trained, said Aidan. Okay, maybe that is a bit PR, but he wouldn't say it for no reason. He was £1 within the best 2-year-old ratings of all time since the ratings happened. Johannesburg with 126. He's quite clearly super talented on his day. If he hasn't trained on, he would have done what Pinatubo did, which is perform £6 below in the Guineas and level off and be beaten by these later developing 3-year-old types. I don't think that's the case. Maybe he hasn't trained on and we'll see it in the Derby. Maybe he'll finish 3rd or 4th and be beaten by a Los Angeles or an Ancient Wisdom who has improved. But I'm willing to give him a chance. And my viewpoint on the Derby hasn't changed since July last year, where I backed City of Troy after the superlative success for the Derby at 16s. Now, I know I'm pro City of Troy and it's an unpopular opinion and all the comments are going to be raining in. Oh, this guy doesn't know what he's talking about, like 2 weeks ago when I said about the Guineas, or 3 weeks ago, whenever it was. But this horse clearly was one of the best, if not the best horses on the flat last year. You've got to give him another go. The price is not great now. I'm not going to go in again. But at the 16s or even a double figure price, 8-1, whatever you may have got, I think that's a perfectly good spot you're sitting in right now.
Yeah, well, that's great for you, but 3-1 right now for everyone else. Could you hand in heart say that people should be getting on with him?
I'm not saying you should get on. I have no strong opinion at the price right now. I think it's fair. And the reason for that is if you look at the 2-year-old form, or actually what any of these horses have achieved, he's achieved the most. So why is he not the most logical winner? I know it was poor run last time, but as I say, it was too bad to be true. So you've got to put a line through it. There is no way you can say, and I know it was all over mainstream TV, that he has not trained on. That's rubbish.
Okay, well, we'll agree to disagree. I do think that with Auguste Rodin, at least they had the ground as an excuse. It was bottomless. He got upset in the stalls with a horse with this mind and constitution and, has all the ability that they've ever needed for a Derby horse. He's going to really have to pucker up for a Derby, which is far more of an event than the Guineas ever is. So I just question him and question his mind. And for those reasons, I'm willing to side with something else again at a better price too. And I do think there are horses in here. And yes, I agree with you, TC. We are all guilty of wiping a horse off our mind after they get beaten once. And we all want them to be unbeaten superstars coming into this. And if they're not, then it's easy to bash them. But it just felt like he just wasn't what I had seen last year, and I was extremely disappointed. So
just to jump in on that, I agree with you because I also was extremely disappointed. Like, I have that same feeling that everyone must have had on social media about him because we all thought he could have been, I don't want to say Frankel-like because that's already been done, but we all thought he could have been God tier in terms of racehorses in recent years. And, we saw him crash back down to earth, but there were numerous reasons why that might have happened. And Aidan's horses weren't firing first up anyway. I don't know. There must have been something else other than this not trained on angle. Also, one quick point on the ground with him. I don't love if it stays soft. I know he's already won on soft before. He probably wants it quicker, maybe good ground, good to firm, but he's already proven he can go through it if there's a little bit of give underfoot. I would, if you are looking to bet now at the price, definitely look out for conditions. And if it gets quicker, then think about it again. If it doesn't, you have worries about it for sure.
Yeah, going reports will probably change. I think it's been soft, good to soft. We'll see what happens over the next couple of days, but it doesn't look like there's a heap of rain coming out. But I think that's wise to keep an eye on it. He does, as I say, have soft winning form. So you're either with him or you're not with him, and then I think that's reflected in the betting. But the bookmaker, we're willing to take him on. I think Los Angeles being one of them has been the one that's been popular. Ancient Wisdom is the horse that's at least got Group 1 winning form, was a runner-up to what really should have been the exciting horse in this race, Economics. He's not here. So probably it's just a strange order that I see these horses in from a betting perspective. And on top of that, this could be a bit more of a fun betting race, Ross. How do you read it?
It's a bit of a muddle, isn't it? That the excitement factors come from the unknowns, which suggests it's not really a punter's race, because generally as punters we like to bet on things we can have strong opinions on. And I think it's really hard to have a strong... I mean, I've struggled throughout the flat season having a strong opinion on any tangible early season line of form. I think TC's absolutely right. It's foolish to give over City of Troy just on one run. I tried to look to see, the stats on 16-2 hand winners of the Derby, because that appears to have been the most important stat bandied around by Ballydoyle about City of Troy. For me, he just looked to lack a little bit of robustness. That was the concern for me. He looked a bit of a narrow shell of a 3-year-old. Conversely, my selection is anything but, and that's Ancient Wisdom. I think he's a big, strong horse. Always going to make up into a better 3-year-old, because he's going to get some strength to go with his size. He physically doesn't. He's not dissimilar to Adayar. I've been with him since he got beaten at Ascot in that novice stakes by Rosalian. He just looked to me there to lack a gear on quicker ground. It was good ground on that occasion. He's got a bit of a knee action, so I wouldn't want it to dry out too much. I think good to soft is fine, as long as there's a bit of cut. You want a strong, staying, robust, tough horse. And if you're looking for balance, you've got Epsom Lingfield. The next best test of balance after that is probably the Rowley Mile Dip. He handled that really well, winning the Autumn Stakes. Backed up just 14 days later to win again. That, to me, shows he's got a bit of toughness about him. I think he's got less questions. And they didn't seem that fussed that he was beaten in the Dante. I think he was beaten by a good horse. The form line's yet to really play out, but I think Economics is a good horse. And they didn't seem fussed. It looked like it was a prep run. He's going to improve for this step up in trip. I think he's got less questions than some of them. So definitely Ancient Wisdom for me. Bellum Justum at a big price, 18-1 with SBK. The form hasn't worked out from that Blue Ribbon trial. Defiance was well beaten at Lingfield. So was Arabic Legend. Big Chief Little Rock was well beaten at Epsom, but like Aidan's is stepping forward. So I wouldn't use the fact that he ran well in a Group 3 next time as a direct form line. But I just like horses that handle the track, and he definitely did that. He looked really uncomplicated, cruised through. Oisin Murphy could put him where he wanted to. On pedigree, he should stay. 18-1 didn't seem the silliest price. Ambient Friendly was one I was really interested in. Plenty's been said about Rab Havlin coming in for it, but I think this could go down as one of the daftest jockey bookings by an owner in many, many years, because so much was made of Callum Shepherd's link up with him at home, teaching him to settle, and Rab Havlin's got plenty of experience, and he won the Group 1 last week. Well, he won the Group 1 because he couldn't hold his horse. It ran away with him for the first 3 furlongs. Well, if Ambient Friendly does this here, he's not going to win the Derby. I think it's a really daft move. It put me off him completely. It's the only thing that put me off him. But Ancient Wisdom, I think, has got the most solid credentials. But again, like the Oaks, I think it's a very open race, and any result wouldn't particularly surprise you.
Well, from the more I listen and the more I think about Ancient Wisdom, the more I can understand the rationale definitely behind him. And I'm also the same when I look at Macduff, a horse that I think has got really good form, that run behind Arabian Crown, but he might be a better horse, I feel like, later on the year. I'm going to go with Los Angeles, and this is a bit of trepidation because he's a horse that you're not really sure how good he is. He just really guts it out, but I think he's really will be better over this distance. He was a 10 furlong winner as a 2-year-old in a Group 1, but again, he was just gutsy. He just does. He's not the sort of attractive sort, because you don't feel like he's going to do anything flashy. But I think that what he did at Leopardstown was enough to suggest that he's going to build on it and get improved with the distance. So Los Angeles, but he can't get any shorter for me than he is at the moment. And then the last one is Dancing Gemini. Maybe I'm doing this from a romantic sense, because I do very much love this story, love the backstory. I love the idea of a Camelot out of an Australian mare winning the Derby. That would be something. And also, A second in Longchamp in the French Guineas was a mighty run. It was a funny race. They went no pace at all, and then they quickened late on. But I think he's pretty versatile, which we saw last year, and I think he's definitely an improver. And at least what we've seen with him, and the common theme with my selections, that they've proved to me that they are developing and getting better this year, and they're not all just about 2-year-olds. So that's what City of Troy needs to prove to me. So we'll see what will happen in the Derby, the biggest lottery potentially, or is it really obvious? And have we just been getting into a little bit of a frenzy about City of Troy? So the best of luck to you all. As I said, SBK offering a 25% winnings boost on both the Oaks and the Derby up to a £10 stake. So make sure you get involved. Right, we've got the declarations for Friday, but naps and next best can come either for Friday or for Saturday. And I'm going to return to TC because I know you're not feeling great. You've got a very bad bout of seconditis. I hope you're getting better, and I hope Saturday is the day you knock it on its head.
Yeah, it's been bad, Jess. To be fair, in the US on Monday, we start getting winners again. So hopefully it's turned around for this week, and it will be a good time to turn around with obviously Derby Day, and then next week's the Belmont Stakes at Saratoga. So good time to turn it around, midsummer. The nap is entered on Saturday. As you've already said just then, we're filming on Wednesday, so we don't have decks. If this horse isn't entered, then make sure you check out my SBK column, which will be posted on my Twitter on Friday. If you actually do want my selection, a new replacement nap will be in there, or next best if I move the next best up. Anyway, my nap is going to be Portsmouth in the 125 at Epsom on Saturday, the first race on the card. Andrew Balding's won this race 3 times in the last 6 years. It's a 0 to 100 handicap, so you kind of feel like he's aiming a horse there every single time rather than just lucking in with that record. This colt just looks really well treated for my liking. He's shaped with good promise in 3 novice events last year, all of which came over inadequate trips. He just seemed a raw and backward type, and it didn't look like he was going to be a proper 2-year-old. Came back after a layoff, was gelded, and ran out an extremely impressive winner at this track on his reappearance, ticking the box there of 1, well handicapped, 2, course form, crucial at Epsom as we know. He came unstuck last time on the repeat bid at 6 to 5. And I think punters may overlook him, or some punters may overlook him on that basis. He's been beaten at a short price. Maybe it was a bit of a fluke first time up. But the form of that race is working out exceptionally well. And actually, he raced way too freely in the early stages that he did phenomenally to actually finish second. The third home, Alcoanese River, subsequently won at Windsor on Saturday, albeit off a very, very lenient rating. The fourth home won yesterday on Tuesday, called Asher Reba. And the winner looks a nice type. So hopefully, Portsmouth can add another victory to that piece of form and prove that he's very well handicapped on Saturday in the first at Epsom. The next best is on Friday, and that's a horse called Mission to Moon in the 540, another 0 to 100 handicap. This colt ran really well at Epsom on his only start at the track last year at 2. He led, which wasn't ideal, and just got picked up by another one of Andrew Balding's. His 2 subsequent victories are both come on soft ground. Now, as we were filming this on Wednesday, the ground is described as soft. It looks like there's some rain due on Thursday and Friday, so it should still be soft when it comes to Friday, and that will definitely suit Mission to Moon. He loves that cut underfoot. I was super impressed with him last time up at Goodwood when he came from last to first in a falsely run race. Hopefully a £4 rise is lenient for him and he can back up in the 540 on Friday.
Okay, thank you. Best of luck to you, TC, for a successful weekend. I'm sure we'll get there. Well, I'm sure we will get there, but there's no bad thing to say. Still getting those wins in America, which you can follow TC in all his action and all his advice, I'm sure, on social media. Okay, Ross, what have you got for us for Naps the Next Best? And you know what happened last week, and we don't need a repeat of it. So let's just try and keep everyone happy. Where are you going?
Well, I pretty much listened to you, Jess. So the nap comes on Friday from Carlisle in the 250. The Grant Chua trained Je ne sais quoi. Was a good filly last year as a 2-year-old for William Haggis. Won twice, including on her last start for that yard off a mark of 77 over 5 furlongs at Nottingham on heavy ground. Ran badly on her first start for Grant Chua in November, but I could forgive that. Moving yards late in the season for filly. That was her 9th run of a pretty heavy juvenile season. Grant Chua is a trainer I got lots of time for. He's very adept at placing his horses well. Nick Bradley is a shrewd guy when it comes to purchasing horses. He's very good in his stats and figures. So I think it's notable they've gone to the horse and training sales and bought her. They tend to buy a lot of breeze up horses. She likes soft ground. It's definitely going to be soft at Carlisle. Still off a mark of 80. I think she's got plenty of scope for more off that mark. She ran some very good races in defeat last year. And grant you, I had a first amount winner on Tuesday, or a debut winner on Tuesday of this week. So the fact it's the first run of the season isn't a concern for me. So Je ne sais quoi is the nap in the 250 from Carlisle on Friday. My next bet doesn't come on Saturday, it comes on Sunday, but it does come on the flat. It's in the 305 from Chantilly, the Prix du Jockey Club. I think Diego Velasquez has got outstanding credentials here. He ran so far above my expectations last time out over a mile. As we've already mentioned, the Ballydor Colts in particular, taking a run to come to hand, finished second over a trip that I am absolutely adamant is way, way, way on his sharp side. He's a half brother to Broome and Point Lonsdale. He's definitely going to improve for the step-up trip. Was looking like it all last year. I think Diego Velasquez on soft ground over 10 furlongs at Chantilly in the Prix du Jockey Club on Sunday at 3:05 is going to take all the beating. So he's the next best. And I might, because I can get away with it, because there won't be just a scout at me. If I get time, I might take a look at some of the jumps action on Saturday and throw one up on the SBK social media on Saturday morning.
Oh, well, I feel like we've converted him. Very much delighted, and actually going to give a little pat on our backs that we've got you here, Ross. And the best of luck with your nap and next best selection. Right, from me, I'm going to go to Epsom on Friday, the 3:45 City Streak. I think he's already 6-1. But I'm hoping that this horse isn't going to get any shorter. He is very well bred sort. He's a half brother to Quickthorn, and we know he just improved with age as well. And this horse has begun his season in the best way. A second and a win at Chester last time. A really tough and gutsy performance to win at Chester. He's up £3, and he's a horse that will really relish it if it is still on this easy side of soft, because it's really at his best with these conditions. I think that Andrew Balding has got his horses in a really good vein of form, and even though it's got a big field and there's plenty of depth to it, I think he is on the right upward trajectory. And then the next, and this is a bit of a gamble, I suppose, because the Dash, we know, is one of the hardest races to get right. And I'm not going to say I will do, but I do love a horse in here called Silky Wilkie. He was second in this race last year. He got a really difficult passage through, and I think he was quite unlucky not to get closer, or at least even win the race. Now, he's a classic sprinter. He goes absolutely everywhere. And this will be, I think it's his 7th run already this year. He ran on the all-weather. He's ran a couple of times on the turf as well. But he's actually a lot further down the handicap than he was last year. He ran in this race with a mark of 107 last year. He's down to a mark of 99. So he's waited to be right back into it. Clifford Lee's back on again, which I think is a positive. Sam Fielden's been on for the last couple of occasions, and I think he's got every chance. We'll see what the draw does, because that's also another variable. But I do love Silky Wilkie. I think he's the rock solid option in a race like the Dash. So that's it. That's the Oaks of the Derby. I hope we've made more sense of it than anyone had been thinking beforehand, because it's not an easy one at all. But we hope that you might be able to get involved with SBK. Don't forget that SBK are offering a 25% winning boost on the 2 races. There are plenty of other offers, same race accas, rate pace plays for the race. And don't forget, all new SBK users, if you're new to us, you get £30 in free bets when you sign up and bet £10 for the first time. And you can also head to SBK for lots of other offers and promotions throughout the weekend. And we will see you very soon.